why don't we just kick it off? We like to start learning about your early days, your childhood. You grew up in Korea?
I did. I was born and raised in Korea until I was 13 years old. It is when we landed in US, we landed in LAX, March 30, 1986.
Okay. Wow. So how was life like in Korea?
Life like in Korea? Like now I look back how propaganda driven the country was. Like, so we were going through like a huge revolutionary change in the country, right? It had just come out from the Korean War. It was establishing itself. And when you walked around or drove around in a car, you cannot go one block without seeing some sort of big sign.
Yeah.
That's like, I remember like it would say things like, good children wake up early in the morning. Like things that are
I guess it could have been worse than that. That's
but like social propaganda,
that's interesting, though,
wake up early and be the winner and just things like that were just written all over on the street.
Why do you think that was? Yeah, why do you think that was? Was it just to like, the government trying to get people to productivity?
Yeah, productivity.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what it was. We had a president, like especially in the 1970s, we had a president. He was almost a dictator, actually.
What was his name?
Oh my God, Park.
Okay.
Park. His last name was Park, and but because of him, Korea had gone from poverty-stricken country to a prosperous country in probably like 20 years.
Wow.
At what cost, though, to the people of Korea, like to the Korean people? Was it a negative thing, I would assume, or?
No, it was a positive thing.
Was it positive?
Actually. Yeah, I would say it was a positive thing. Like at that time, during that time, at that period, that's what it was needed.
Yeah. How did that impact your family? Do you remember? I know you said you were 13 when you came here, so I assume you remember something.
Yeah. How did that impact us? That did not impact our family, but it was just when we decided to move to U.S., it was because we all come to America for a better life, and that's what we were after.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you mentioned kind of like, or I guess, how old did you mention you were when you moved here?
13.
13. Obviously, like, 13 is an interesting age because you're kind of like just kind of maybe getting into high school right around that time. Junior high and then getting into high school.
7th grade.
Exactly. What, I guess before that time, like what were some things that you were maybe interested in back home in Korea, like as a kid, younger than 13, that you can remember?
A few things. I wanted to be a writer. I was really good at writing, so I wanted to be a writer. And second thing was I wanted to be an Egyptologist. I had this obsession with Egypt, and I wanted to be an Egyptologist. Very interestingly, starting 3rd grade, I promised myself that I was never going to get married. I don't know I don't know where that came from. Those 3 things I remember. And
was there something in your life that led you to that thing of like, I don't want to get married?
I have no idea why. I like really have no idea why.
Did you ever change your mind?
I did, obviously, because I did get married. I'm not married anymore, but I did get married the year I turned 40. But anyways, what I did was I was always living in an imaginary world. My dad didn't buy us a lot of toys, but he bought us books. So we were expected to read a book a week. So I just read through a lot of books, and my playtime was, because I didn't have any toys to play with, my playtime was just sitting by myself and spending a lot of time just getting lost in my own imagination. And hindsight, I look back, and those were like really, like I was manifesting without knowing that I was manifesting. I was meditating without knowing that I was meditating.
What were some of the books that you were reading?
Oh, we had this is pre-13, so there were a lot of children's books, of course. It was a lot of like the U.S. or the European version of books that were translated into Korean. But I was like a really advanced reader, where I was reading like Madame Bovary at sixth grade, adult version of Madame Bovary that I was not supposed to read.
Right.
Yeah, we're in your room, and I assume this is like an office / study. Like there's a bunch
this is my office.
a bunch of
Home
books
office.
I'm seeing here, and I'm just trying to see like. So was there anything in particular? You mentioned Egypt. Like how did you even? I see an Egyptian book right there, actually. Egypt.
The game book. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you even come interested into that?
Egypt, particularly because it's one of the seven mysteries of the world, right? Surprisingly, if anybody who's lived outside of U.S. and grew up and raised and educated outside of U.S. will say the same thing, that a lot of the non-U.S. country students learn a lot more about other countries' culture.
Yeah,
it's built
sounds
into,
about right.
It's built into the school learning system.
Right.
Yeah.
I think in the American school system, you kind of just gloss over things.
Right.
It's like, well, here's what happened in the Middle East. Here's what happened in Asia. Here's what happened in Europe. And here are some of the wars, and see you later. But I feel like nowadays, content, YouTube, obviously podcasts, all this stuff, it's up to you to have that exposure and to actually want to be learning those things or visiting those places. And it's become a lot more accessible, in my opinion, than, even 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Oh, for sure. Especially with YouTube, because you could see like these like 15-minute clips, 20-minute clips, like short snippets of whatever subject or content that you want to consume. But, back in the day, if the schools were not teaching, if they were not teaching, or the parents or the school teachers were not actively teaching the students, you had no idea. You had zero access to the outside world.
Do you think that having this like global view, global knowledge had some sort of a positive impact on you early on? And if so, what was that impact?
It definitely did. So that's just my childhood. But what really changed my life was the year I went to Italy for a Cosmoprof Bologna show, to Bologna, Italy. And that was, this is the year I was turning 25. And it really opened my eyes. It like truly, really opened my eyes to the potential possibilities of what's out. Like, I felt like I was a frog living in a well. Like, literally, that's like, I understood what that felt like, a frog in a well. And again, I'm talking about 1998, 1999, and this is a different world, right? Like right now, like plane tickets are cheap and everybody's traveling everywhere. Of course, not during COVID, but like pre-COVID, everybody's trying, like it's so much easier and cheaper and just everything to pull information of where to go. Like traveling became so easy. But like even like in the 90s, people were not traveling internationally that much. So I always say traveling is the biggest and the best education one person can have.
Yeah. I know you and I, Pat, talk about that a lot because, both of our parents, immigrants, came in the, I would say, late 70s, 80s, around that time. We grew up in the 90s. I really didn't have a chance to travel that much at all internationally. I think now that we make money, now that we're kind of have our own careers, it's something that we're starting to do. But there's clearly a difference between those people that have traveled and those that haven't. Not to say one's smarter than the other. It's a different sort of, knowledge-based, different sort of wisdom. But you could tell when somebody is, quote-unquote, well-traveled and understands different cultures, their needs, their history. Like, I don't know, it just gives you a different perspective on life back at home, wherever home is for you.
I agree 100%. It just gives you a different perspective. And, I think one thing you realize is it doesn't matter where you go, people are people.
Right.
And people are good. We like our news feed constantly feed us with everything that is wrong with the world, everything that is bad about people. But you will go to the remotest place in this world and you will meet the nicest people. And happy people who are nice and who smile and they want to talk to you. And, people are good.
Yeah. So when you kind of came to the US, what was that experience like for you in terms of having the life you had in Korea and then coming here to this like new place that maybe you didn't know much about? Like what was that kind of acclimation process like for you?
Well, it was really hard. It's not easy for a 13-year-old to move to another country and be thrown into school and say, learn, because overnight you become this person with learning disability and you don't have learning disability,
Right.
but you don't, I mean, because I came to US knowing how to speak three things. I knew how to say yes, no, and thank you. That's all. Um, but before coming to US, when my parents announced the fact that we're going to US, I was jumping up and down, and I was the happiest kid because I was like, "Oh my God, that's where Disneyland is!" And like I used to see pictures of
Right.
America where people have swimming pools in the backyard. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to like go live in a country with swimming pool in the backyard and go to Disneyland and all this like fun stuff. But once we moved here, obviously we didn't have a lot of money. So five of us moved into this 2-bedroom apartment in a not so good neighborhood, and we're put in school
In LA?
In LA. Like it's called like the San Fernando Valley area. Like this little corner apartment that my mom's friend had rented for us. And I was put in school, and basically my parents press a go button and say, go to school and figure it out. The great thing is, they have these classes called ESL, English as Second Language. It's an immersive English learning classes. So you're in this for 4 hours a day. And first 6 months, like I literally sat through the class like a blind, deaf, who couldn't hear, speak, see anything because I couldn't understand anything. But slowly, I started to hear like one word, two word, and then I started to hear and put together a sentence. And it took about 2 to 3 years for me to like finally open my mouth and say a sentence, like a full sentence out of my mouth.
Right.
And I have to say, that was pretty challenging. It's not easy for a teenager to go to another country and like adapt and start their life.
Was it easy to find friends, or was that a challenge too?
Friends was a little easier because there were other kids in that school who were like me.
Right.
So we kind of like hung around together.
Right.
We understood each other.
Sure.
We understood our pain.
Yeah. So now kind of in those later years in like junior high school, did you start becoming interested in other things now that you kind of had kind of this like idea of America and like what was going on here? Like, were there other interests that you kind of came into?
Yeah. Nightclub.
Nightclub?
Nightclub.
In middle school?
No, what happened was, so at 13, I came to, not I, because, it wasn't my decision. My parents came and so I came as innocent as the fresh snow on the ground. I was so innocent. And then I came here, and within 2 years, I was clubbing.
At 15.
At 15, I was
Where?
clubbing. Huh?
Where?
I had a fake ID that was
Nice.
35 years old. The fact that the bouncers let me in with the 35-year-old woman's fake ID.
What was the nightlife scene in LA at the time? Because I feel like it's changed
Poppin'.
Oh, it's
Discos.
changed so much. It's changed so much. Like, it was like the places that we went to was actually called a nightclub. It was a nightclub. So you went there, and there's the bar, and you order table service, and so I became completely pure innocent to completely this devilish child in the span of 2 to 3 years.
Interesting.
Do you think that that had anything to do with, like, were you trying to rebel against anyone?
Absolutely. That was my pain coming through. That was my anger coming through.
Yeah.
Anger with your parents?
Anger with the parents, anger, that just the teenage rage, number one. Number two, the fact that I overnight became a learning disability person. Like the fact that it's just like everything. I feel like my childhood was stolen from me almost,
Yeah. So, so I guess what kind of path did that lead you on? Like, did you deep down feel like you knew what you were doing still? Like, even though you were kind of rebelling and you were, kind of going into like, I mean, like at that point, maybe like a lot of kids are like, oh, I want to go to college. Like, was that on your mind, or were you trying to set yourself up for that? Like, what was kind of going through your head at the time?
Yeah, so that happened too, but my grades were not good enough to go to college, number one. And
I saw you went to the school that Pat and I went to,
which is
Glendale Community College.
Oh, did you guys go there?
We did.
No way.
We did definitely go there.
Oh, look at us, the three of us sitting in this room.
There you go. Interesting. Something came out of Glendale College.
Yeah.
Good
The
old
greatness
GCC.
came out of Glendale College.
Glendale College in Glendale, California. I want to be specific.
Yes.
Yeah,
There's a
not
Community
Glendale,
College in
Arizona.
That's right.
The better one here in California. Yeah.
Wow.
Look at us.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to Glendale College, and the intention was to spend 2 years there and transfer over to a college.
Yep.
But along the way, I just dropped out, and I decided to start something on my own, and that's when I started to brew the idea of NYX Cosmetics.
Are you the most famous Glendale College dropout?
Besides you?
No. I didn't drop out. I said college dropout. No, I should have dropped out. That would have been a better strategy than continuing. No, but that's awesome. So, what was, I guess, how did you even conceptualize the idea of what NYX would be? I mean, were you at this point into makeup and beauty and fashion and
makeup, beauty, fashion, always. I think it's like in my blood.
Right.
And I worked at a family business, so. We did the most immigrant thing. Our family did the most immigrant thing as possible. We started a little store.
Yeah.
So I used to go work in the family business every after school, every weekend, every vacation. We never took a day off, like, textbook immigrant, sorry. And my mom's the head of the household. She's the matriarch. And she's actually a really amazing business person. So we ended up having like multiple locations. And eventually we folded everything and started a wholesale distribution business in the beauty supply space. So I was familiar with, and I worked in the family business. I was familiar with the landscape of the market. Mm-hmm. And because I'm a consumer, I knew exactly what the consumers wanted and needed that was missing in the marketplace. And that was high efficacy color cosmetics with great quality at a very affordable price that looked expensive. And, it's looking like sleek and clean. And products then, pre-1999, pre-NYX Cosmetic, there were a lot of brands that were in the budget space. But when you bought it, you could, like, the packaging itself, like, you could tell that it's from a drugstore.
Right.
And the quality was not really amazing. Versus when you went to a department store, you find all these amazing, beautiful products and beautiful quality, but they were like really expensive. So I wanted to marry the two, and that's where NYX Cosmetics. That's how NYX Cosmetics was born.
So did you kind of, from the standpoint of like trying to grow the brand, like how did you start figuring out how you were going to do that? Even though you kind of knew what you wanted, and there was like a little bit of like a foundation to like get the product, created and all that. But like, how did you know how you were going to get it out there?
Yeah, so the world was very different, right? So I feel like I'm a dinosaur now. The world was very like we didn't even have like I had an AOL email address back then.
I'm sure some people still have an AOL email address. So to those listening that have an AOL.com email address, please get a Gmail.
I still have it. NYX Girls
Toni,
at AOL.com.
please get a Gmail.
I do have Gmail
good.
too. So, and then like this is when the printers were still dot metrics, and e-com was not a thing. And there were definite structures of how products flew through in the marketplace. So there were importers, and there were distributors, and there were wholesalers, there were retailers, and then there were consumers. So you had to go pass through 5 to 6 layers of different profit rate percentage per every time it passed through till a consumer had their hands on the product, right? Importers made 20%, distributors made another 20%, the wholesalers made 20%, and then the retailers finally made 100% markup. And then that's the SRP, suggested retail price, right? And then there was the consumer, and how we sold the product was by going through all these trade shows. So there were all these trade shows. They still have these shows, not all of them, but some of them. Like there used to be a show called the ASEMD show in Las Vegas. It started as an army surplus show, but somehow like all the brands came out. Trade shows in New York at the Javits Convention Center, trade shows in Miami. Like I was a warrior on the road, going to all the trade shows. And that's where we met our customers.
And you were like what, in the early 20s at this point?
I was 26 when I first started.
And you had no clue. I mean, I assume you had a little bit of clue what you were doing, but like, you know, you didn't study business. You didn't, you know, talk to other entrepreneurs and mentors, I assume. I mean, you were just straight up learning on your own. I
was straight up learning on my own, but I say but because my family is like, I'm third generation entrepreneur, I guess. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. My dad, although, you know, he's not the typical entrepreneur, but he did run our family business. And then my mom's side, they're all entrepreneurs as well. So I think it's kind of like in me. And when I was very young, I was the last child. I'm the last child in the family.
You're a rebel to begin with.
Yeah. So, and I'm 4 years behind my sister. So that means my sister and my brother, when they were at school, I was home because I was too young to go to school. And I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, my grandpa, and like just being around. And you know, like when you're like really young, you don't like, you're not consciously learning, but you're subconsciously learning. And I honestly really think that had a lot to do with how I view business. I kind of have like this unexplainable innate sense of how people behave. And
how do you view business? I'm curious.
How do I view business? The most important thing is the only way to win is when everybody wins. And that is your supplier, your company, and your customers, the accounts. So it's a triangle, right? And all 3 points of the triangle needs to be profitable to be a successful business. And it's very important to me. So I don't squeeze my vendors very, very much. I get a quotation, and I very rarely say I want like certain percentage off the quotation or whatever. I do when I think about what the retail price should be per what my cost is, and that doesn't align, then maybe I will go back and say, hey, can you match this price? Because when I look at this product, I need to sell it at X amount, and the cost does not allow me to be able to sell it at that amount. But if their first quotation comes in and then it is reasonable and I could like price it, then I don't even go back and ask for a discount. I say, fine, here's a PO, period. I want them to make money. They have to make money. They have to make money to survive, run their business. And it's very important for them to survive and run the business.
And be motivated to come to work and make your shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, here's the thing. The vendors, whose product are they going to make first? Customers who pay them well. So I pay everybody, like, is sharp. Credit is so very important to me. And this is like one of the things that I used to always hear my grandfather. He used to say just things like you could never owe money to anybody. Like, you have to pay your debt even from your grave. Like that's what he used to say. That's how important credit is to him. And it's just like kind of rubbed off on me.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I guess in terms of the initial stages of putting the products together, like did you kind of go pretty wide in terms of how many different kind of products you were creating, or was it pretty narrow?
It was pretty narrow. And I think, and I didn't know, it wasn't purposely done narrow. But I only had 18 SKUs when I launched. And I actually think that was the best strategy because it was a company, I say, when I first started, I had an employee of 3. It's me, myself, and I. So if I had a lot of SKU, I would have been, it would have been a suicide for me. Like the company would have suffered under the weight of having to carry too many SKUs. I would not have been able to manage that myself. But because it was only 18 SKU, I was able to manage it myself. Me, myself, and I, all 3 of us.
So it's more so from a standpoint of trying to manage it yourself and not necessarily trying to like throw too much at the market and like see, kind of like maybe going a little bit more niche.
Yeah, it was definitely. So we started with 18 SKU and I kept it at 18 SKU probably for a good 2 years. And when I added another product, that was like it took me close to 3 years to have 3 different style of items. More SKUs, more SKU count, but different style of items.
And how are you getting accounts or how are you selling the product?
Trade shows.
That's it.
Trade shows. But here's the thing. The products were flying off the shelf.
And where were they?
Retail stores. I had one retail account, one retail store that was selling 50 to 60 pieces of these lip liner pencils a day.
Wow.
So what that did was, the wars, they don't have legs and they don't have feet, but they travel very fast. The wars got out. So what happened was I had people coming to me asking me to open an account for them instead of me going to all these accounts trying to sell to them because products were selling so well.
And it was purely like word of mouth merchandising, or like was there like a lot of marketing and stuff that you were doing outside of that?
No marketing, zero marketing. Besides trade shows, you could call that a marketing too, right?
Yeah.
But besides going to trade shows, zero marketing. There was no social media. There was no Instagram. There was no TikTok. Like Vogue magazine. But hello, like a page in Vogue magazine, it was probably like $100,000. I couldn't afford that.
Did that also mean that there was less noise in the space? Like, not to diminish NYX as a brand whatsoever, but would it have been more challenging to start it today where every person, including me and Pat, can have a beauty cosmetics company?
Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely. It was. And there weren't as many brands back then.
Right.
There were some national brands, the brands that we all know, like Maybelline, CoverGirl, Max Factor, Revlon, L'Oreal, like all of those brands. But in the independent side of the beauty brand business, there weren't that many.
Because those brands that you just mentioned were all kind of put together by like larger conglomerates like L'Oreal,
Estee Lauder,
and all those.
Like really, when you walk into the floor at, say, Nordstrom or whatever, 50% of those brands are owned by one company. The other 50% owned by the second other company.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's like those sunglasses. It's like
Luxottica. 85% of the market share.
Yeah, it's like one company. It's like 100 brands, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or Diageo with alcohol.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. So in terms of like, was there like a point in the business? It sounds like kind of from the beginning, you were kind of hustling, you were getting it out there, and there's a lot of interest, and the word was spreading. Was there like a moment where you like realized, oh my God, this is going to be like way bigger than I imagined it would be? Like, did something happen? Was there like one moment, or was it just like a gradual thing?
Well, it's gradual and a one moment too, because there's like that inflection point in business, right? Like business, like it doesn't matter whose business it is, no one's business climb at the same rate of growth year over year. There are years where you grow like crazy, 100%, 200%, and then there are some years where you just plateau for a little bit, and then another like crazy growth. But so I launched this thing, Color Cosmetic, 26 years old, first time starting a business. I have no idea what I'm doing. Just going with my gut feelings on everything. I'm working by myself, doing everything. And then the first year I did $2 million in net sales.
Crazy.
That's like in 4 million in retail value. The year after, like I did double that. The year after I did another almost double. So we're growing crazy, like really well. And 2000, and it just kept on growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And then 2007, something happened. Two things happened. That's when the real estate market crashed. December of 2007 is when the real estate, remember, like it was dark time, dark time. But you guys probably heard that the lipstick effect during recession, that is a recession-proof item because it is something that you could pay $5-10 and buy something that makes you feel good. So I saw that really happening with my own eyes. I've heard of it before, but I've never experienced it. And this was the first recession after I had started my company, and I saw with my own eyes, whoa, like this lipstick theory is really true. Yeah. And then another thing happened. YouTube happened, and I saw the first swing of YouTube selling when I saw this one item just started to fly off the shelf. And mind you, like this item was such a low seller. It was on the discontinued list for my company. And it just out of nowhere, this item just started to sell, like fly off the shelf, and we couldn't keep it in stock. And like, we're like, what is going on? And one day I had a gal who was like really computer savvy, and she came and she said, hey, you know what I saw on this thing called YouTube? I saw somebody doing a tutorial using this item as like an eyeshadow base. And that's when I went like, oh my God, ding, 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 ding. This is like, I get it. Word of mouth marketing is the most effective marketing. This was amplified version of the word of mouth marketing, right? Because before YouTube, before like things like this that we're on, somebody would buy a lipstick or something, and if they like it, they'll tell their sister, their mom, their aunt, and their friends, and that's it. Your network of probably, maybe it would, if I sold one product to one person and they loved it, it would maybe reach 10 people in that one person circle. But now, because of YouTube, we're reaching tens and thousands of her or his best friends.
Yeah. So did you end up doing anything like investing in more like creating relationships with YouTubers at the time, early YouTubers, or creating content yourself? Like, what did you end up doing based on that opportunity?
Immediately. So we weren't content creators, and we like content creator that wasn't even a word. Influencer was not like, these words have all been invented since like what now 12 14 years maybe. Right. But anyway, so what we started doing was we started to send products. So now this is the PR box, like modern day PR box, right? Yeah. But we just started sending out like one lipstick, two lipstick, or like just few products to like these bloggers, so-called. The first generation of those bloggers. Oh my God. And they were so talented too. And so that's when the company just like grew crazy. 2009, I brought in an investor for the first time. So started in 99, and 2009 I brought in. So 10 years into business, I brought in an first-time investor, did a minority deal. And the next...
And you needed that for growth, or what did you need that for?
No, I needed smart money. The company we were financially very stable because one thing I've known being in the family business for a very long time, and like third generation entrepreneur, and being in business, like I had always seen like my family being like the roller coaster of
the highs
being
and
like
lows.
wealthy and poor and wealthy and poor. Like I saw that like from very early on, and I was very mindful of my expenses. So I guess you could say I was like super cheap, but like I was like sweat equity. I put in a lot of sweat equity into the company, right? And I was very conscious about my spending in the business, and it doesn't matter. You could make $1 million, but if you spent $2 million, you're poor.
Right.
As a company, as a person. So I've never kind of like partied like a rock star, I guess you could say.
Well, you got that out of the way at 15.
I know.
Yeah.
I blossomed early.
Right.
So, so I did that. And so company was like financially really stable. But
what's smart money?
Smart money is when you partner with investors for their network, more like.
Got it.
Yeah.
Like a strategic raise.
Part. Yeah. So I was trying to get into like CVS, the Walgreens, like the big box retailers.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept knocking on the door, and I kept hearing no. And it was really like, I didn't know how to go about opening accounts with these like large retailers. And we're going to these trade shows, targeting these large retailers, which were very expensive and just like year over year. So I decided that I was going to sell a portion of my company to a strategic partner, a smart money people who's had the experience in the market that I wanted to get into, that they could be the bridge between my brand and then these like big box retailers. So I partnered with this company, HCP out of Chicago, boutique firm, and they had just exited out of a hair care company that was selling into like Walgreens and CVS, like all the accounts that I wanted to get into. That means they had contact information for all the right sales rep group. So immediately after they came on board, they got me signed up with a sales rep group company for Target. And that completely revolutionized the entire business. Like we got into Target, and then we did so well. And once you get into one account and do really well, then what happens is the other accounts now come to you instead of you going to them.
Right.
And that's what happened.
How do those other accounts know? Like, are they just keeping tabs on like which products are flying off the shelf?
Yeah, so they do. They
probably have like designated people in like buyers, no?
They have buyers, yeah, absolutely. So like, before all of this, and when I was trying to open the account, like I would have meeting with CVS buyer, but then they want to know what kind of business I was doing in Walgreens. And when I went to Walgreens, they want to know what kind of business I'm doing at CVS. But when you're not in either of the account, you don't have the data to show them. And, these buyers, they're responsible for 7,000, 8,000 doors. And we're talking about serious dollars. Like if you don't have data to prove your sales number, why would they put you in? Why would they take out a brand from their wall and then replace it with your brand?
I have a question. So obviously being in those big box retail stores helps a brand like NYX, helps other brands that are there financially.
Right.
From the consumer's perception angle, what does it look like when I see NYX at CVS and Target versus my independent retailer or online or wherever where I could get it directly? Does it almost cheapen the brand? I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious as to how consumers might have responded or how consumers do respond currently.
No, not at all. So, I mean, yes and no. because there are brands specifically for, let's say in the beauty world, say Sephora. Like if a brand that's being sold as Sephora opened an account with Walmart per se, that will be detrimental to the brand.
Right.
Because now that's kind of like completely two different tiers, right?
Correct.
But when you're like anything, so there's Sephora, which is kind of like the top tier.
Were you there also?
No, we were not in Sephora. My brand's suggested retail price was too cheap for Sephora, so we couldn't be there. We were in Ulta, but Ulta carries both the mass and the prestige. So if you're a prestige brand and suddenly decide to sell at a mass market, go play in the mass market, that will be detrimental to your brand. But unless that, like, it doesn't matter where you are.
Got it. Makes sense.
So how many people were at the company like around that time, like 2009-ish, when you sort of started to really get into like the big box retailers?
Yeah, I think around 2009-ish, I think I had about 75 employees. By the time I sold the company, it was 2014. So from 2009 to 2014, we went from like 75 people to 250 employee. And by 2014, we had 3 different warehouses. We had 2 warehouses in City of Commerce. We had a warehouse in Amsterdam for the European market, and we're in 70 different countries, selling to 70 different distributors. And it was a very complex business model, but weirdly simple. Because we didn't have any e-com. We had e-com, but e-com was probably like 1% of the total revenue or something.
Yeah.
And why I started e-com?
Why? No.
I got so sick and tired of people emailing us where they could buy our product. So I decided that I was just gonna open an e-com, like an online store where people could just go and buy the products. And we weren't even like looking at that as like a revenue stream. Like to us, that was just like, oh my God, like we're getting like hundreds of emails every day. Like, let's just like put these people into this bucket. And our focus was growing international was our huge focus, and opening more accounts, retail accounts, wholesale business.
It's crazy to think that like 10 to 12 years ago, you were at like 1% e-commerce, and today, I think the number is around 15 to 20% of all things are sold online, which is still low.
Seems fairly low still.
Yeah, but
today.
that is what I think they're going based off of like sales versus like the number of items. So and Amazon's probably a majority of that. So but crazy how fast the world changed in a decade of even you running that business.
Yeah, decade. But I feel like in the last 2 years, like 2 decade worth of changes happened, like condensed into 2 years.
For sure.
I feel like it's a different world.
Yeah. So before we talk about what you're up to now, you mentioned 2014 was when you sold the company to L'Oreal. How did that whole thing come about? Like, did they reach out to you? Were you ready to sell it and you were seeking out buyers? Like, what was that process like, if you can share more?
We were ready to sell. We're definitely ready to sell. So the thing is, when you bring on an investor, they come with a timeline.
Yeah.
So when the investors come in, so here's the thing. Investors, the money that they invest in your company are often not their money either. They went and got an investor to invest in their fund so they could deploy that money and invest that money in the brands, and they make, portion of the money and, the whole structure. So the investors have to return their money to their investors as well. And usually a fund's timeline is between 5 to 7 years on average. So when my investors came on board, it was very clear that we wanted to exit the company in 5 to 7 years. So a lot of the times when it's short, it's 3 years. Average is 5. When it's long, it's 7-year exit, right? So they came out in 2019. So 2014 was the 5th year. And that was, and I was going on 15 years of finding this company. I felt like I had no life. Basically, I started when I was 26. Half my 20s almost. My 30s was just a blur. I don't I honestly forget the entire decade. Like I get confused. Like 2001 to 2010, like I feel like it was non-existent for me because I was just like living on the like I was living out of my suitcase basically, like constantly rotating and constantly traveling, just like so I was ready to exit myself, and my investors were definitely ready to recoup their money and their earnings. So by December, like by the winter of 2013, I slowly would bring in these suits and tie guys, like
Investment
the
bankers.
bankers who would casually have like dinner meetings, and they come by the office. And yeah, we were ready to go out and market ourselves. So we did the auction style. We didn't put a price on the company. We did an auction style, and we did the whole traditional, the whole route. We first interviewed for a banker to represent us, and then once that was narrowed down, the next was we did the fireside chat, like the whole classic route of selling a company. And we at the end we nail it down to 7 prospect buyers. That's what we did. And we had set up shop at SLS Hotel here on by Beverly Center. We have rented a small conference room where we mock set up our showroom kind of. And we were doing this intricate dance of each potential buyer, and some were strategic, some were financial. They'll fly in the night before. We would take them out to dinner, entertain them, and then the next morning was a presentation. This group flies out, the next group flies in, and then we did the same thing over and over and over again. And last presentation was L'Oreal, which was the biggest presentation, one of the biggest presentation too. And along the way, like there was a company who wanted to preempt, but their price was too low, so we ended up saying goodbye to them. Or some people, because once they start doing due diligence, it costs them a lot of money too.
Right.
Like these companies are investing their time and money. So we had a very, like, as we were doing this presentation, we had a very frank, open conversation, and we let some of the prospect buyers know, like, hey, if your price is gonna come in under
This
like
number.
this threshold,
Don't
like
waste your
we'll
money.
advise you to not waste any more of your time or money.
Right.
Yeah, to just drop out of the race. And at the end, it was 2 last companies, and one was TPG, and then one was L'Oreal. So one was completely financial, and one was completely strategic. And then the deal was very interesting too. Like L'Oreal's deal was like full cash buyout, and no earn out. I walk away, beautiful. Which is beautiful.
Right.
And
Because
then
typically sometimes they require you as a founder to stay for like 3 to 4 years and help, or like two to 3 years, help transition the company and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, crazy. See, but then by the time I sold my company, I wasn't the CEO of the company anymore. I was chairman.
Got it.
And I had a creative director role, but that could have been handed off to somebody else. I wanted to make sure the company was self-running. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to walk away. So I started to like design and like put the full team together. So I had a CFO, I had a CEO, and like I was going to work every day till the last day I sold the company. But I knew the brand and the company was gonna be completely fine without my daily presence there. So that wasn't that was like no issue at all.
I was going to ask, how were you like as a leader?
I'm evolving every day, I have to say. I'm very different leader now than I was before.
How were you before?
How was I before? I was just learning every day, number one. But I am the type that is lead by example. So you will see me on the floor doing the same thing as the lowest paying employee or the highest paying employee, basically. I still went to all the trade shows, and a lot of the trade shows were like OTC, like over the counter trade shows. And a lot of the times, like I would be the last one there, packing boxes. Like I'm not afraid of hard work. I actually enjoy it. I have I have treacherous moments are the most treasure moments. Like when I look back at business, like there were like a lot of glorious moments too, but like those hard moments are the memories that I keep fondly. And the first 3 years of the business, I think, was the funnest year ever. And and I wasn't like a socializing industry socializing person either. I'm an introvert. I'm an extreme introvert, actually. And I never went to any events. Never went to any events. Like if I had to go to an event, like I like go in, just do my thing, and then the first chance I get, I'm out of there. Yeah, and I just worked every day, and I loved working.
So when you sold the company, what did that feel like? Because I can imagine that's life changing for you, right?
Yeah.
Like not just the money, but like the ability to say I created a successful business and sold it to a company like L'Oreal, like they were interested in buying it. It's like, so walk us through like what was kind of going through your head and in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, so the entire process, like the exit from the concept, the idea of okay, let's sell the company to actually sold the company took close to like 8-9 months, right? Because we started the winter of 2013 interviewing the bankers to represent us, like the whole, and then by the time I sold the company was July 30th of 2014. So it was a long time, and it's such an exciting moment. I mean, it's adrenaline. It's just like, it is so much of everything. And I feel like I did like 2 MBAs selling the company. Right. It was such an amazing memory, moments, just everything. So exhilarating. And then I sold the company. On July 30th. So, but then the deal had consummated already in June 30. The deal had consummated. It's just we had to wait 30 days for the wire transfer to come in because L'Oreal is a European company and they have some like SC security like issues. Right. So just waited until the money came in, and on July 30th, I remember going into my office as usual, and I sat down, got an email from my attorney saying that the money had been wired. I opened my account and I count the zeros, and I was like, "Oh, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like." Okay, and it was very unceremonious too, I have to say. Those mailing box, like those plastic mailer box. I had my personal thing in one mailer box, and I basically picked that up and I said bye to my team member, and I got in my car and I drove home. And that was it. And I passed out. sleeping. I thought I was gonna go out and like party and champagne and all of that stuff, but that didn't happen. I slept probably like 12-14 hours from like the sheer exhaustion. Like if you feel like a balloon, like helium, like over like stuffed helium balloon that was like overly expanded, and somebody put a needle and just like boop, and then there was nothing. Kind of.
What did those counting of zeros feel like? Was it, to yourself like, I did this, or was it a relief that it was now over? I mean, what was that emotion of seeing that number?
Kind of nonchalant, like almost no emotion, I would say. Like it was just a number. It was just a number. You know what? Like the chase was a lot more exhilarating and fun than the kill itself, I guess.
Right.
Once you made the kill, it was just like,
Well, now you can eat. once you make the killing, right?
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned like, you know, you kind of sacrificed a lot of like your 20s and early 30s and whatnot. Like, did you feel like now, like, okay, great, now I can actually go and maybe do a lot of the things that maybe I wanted to do in the last decade that I couldn't do?
I did think about that. I wanted to, like, one thing I wanted to do was travel. I was traveling a lot, but I wasn't traveling for my personal pleasure or anything.
Yeah.
So I went to like all these countries and like all of these traveling. But you know what I did? I saw airport, I saw convention center, and I saw hotel
Yeah.
in all these cities, like beautiful places. And the last place I was in Poland in April. Like snow was up to my waist in April in Poland. And like I remember like going through the airport, like I'm like taking my glove off, my scarf off, my like 2 layers of jacket at the security line, and just going, gosh darn it, like I wish I was in Poland when I want to be in Poland. Maybe in summer, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to travel. Like I wanted to do like the whole like I want to go to like Italy, live there for 3 months and learn how to make pasta, and go to like Japan and live there for 3 months. None of it happened.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
None of it happened.
Yeah.
I started a new office exactly 1 week after.
Like a new company?
A new company, like a new office.
Yeah.
Like you
Not
leased
like
the
a
place.
no product, but now I had the money. Like what are you gonna do? You have to invest the money, so the money has to go to work. So
Right, but like, why did you think that you had to go back into starting another business? Why not just like invest in real estate and just a bunch of stuff and hang out and do the traveling you wanted? Like, why did you want to throw yourself back into the?
I did that too.
Yeah.
So I had a investment company called Butter Ventures, where I was investing in female-found companies, and I have the biggest portion of my portfolio is in real estate, actually. So I did that, but it was so boring to me. It's just Excel sheet. Like I'm not an Excel sheet person. I'm a visual person, and I'm a product person. Like I need my creative energy to go to somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So I needed that, and I needed that outlet. So, but then the starting the office was because, when you don't know anything else to do, I don't know. Like, I don't know if anybody could understand this.
Probably not a lot of people.
It's like, I don't know anything else except starting another company. And
Yeah.
I guess this is my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Were you almost getting stressed out during that week of like, I have nothing to do?
I was depressed. I was depressed, and then I got more and more depressed as time went on after selling the first company, and I was at one point like clinically depressed, and that's why I started the sunglass company, which was my second company, because
And what was that called?
Started it as Perverse Sunglasses, then rebranded it to Thomas James LA. And got out of that one in 2019, but because I had non-compete. I had a 5 years non-compete
For NYX.
in beauty. So I wasn't able to invest in the beauty company. Like, so it was like no investment. I couldn't advise. I couldn't sit on board. I
do
couldn't
shit.
I just couldn't do anything in the
Right,
beauty
right.
space for 5 years.
Right.
So so I started a sunglass company. But it was a therapy for me.
Right.
It was for me to get myself out of my dark, depressed days of thinking, what is the purpose of my
Right.
life? Why am I existing?
Right.
Like,
So you just went through all this. You had this massive exit, and you're saying that at that moment you had this kind of existential crisis of like, is this it? Is this life? Is this?
Yeah. And I was only 41. I was only 41. I was so young too, and like, mind you, like a lot of people by 41, they're married and they have children. So I think a lot of the other entrepreneurs who exit, they find something else to focus on, and that is a lot of the times is their family, right? I didn't have that. I was married for a very short period of time, and we didn't have any children. So there was nothing else to focus on, for me to spend my energy on. And I wasn't meditating then. Like, I wasn't living the lifestyle that I am living now. But it's every single minute, hour, days, year was exactly the time that I need to pass through as part of my life. And, even those moments, like, I'm grateful for. So I know what that deep, deep darkness feels like.
Right. It's just crazy to think that, and are you able to share the exit amount of what L'Oreal,
I have a non-disclosure agreement.
Got it.
Yeah.
So everybody can go Google it, and they can maybe find out what that number looks like. But a lot of people in their lifetime, especially at such a young age, and especially, on top of a female entrepreneur that started in the late 90s, like even today, like, and Pat and I have sat down with 200 plus founders, less than 10% are female, right? Like, and you're in like a league of your own. So not a lot of people could share the thoughts and the feelings and the life that you were going through. What was it that finally got you out of that funk?
Starting another company.
Yeah. And how did that go? Did you just do it for fun and you're like, whatever happens, like, I just need to do something else?
The thing is, I always start things for fun. And it becomes a ginormous project of its own. It starts building its own life. So the second company that I started was another like dramatic, oh my gosh, the things that I went through, I lost a lot of money too. So I could say that it wasn't like a successful company.
Thomas James LA.
Yeah, it wasn't successful at all. I thought I did the market research, clearly not. But I learned so much from that business that I don't regret a second of it.
What did you learn?
One thing I learned: money cannot fix the problem. If the company is not healthy, if the brand is not healthy, you could pour as much money as possible. It's a bottomless pit. Just money goes in, money goes out, money goes in, money goes out. And then another thing is, as an entrepreneur, like, you have to know at least, if there's 3 pillars to the business, right? You have to know at least 2 of those 3 pillars, like be an expert at like 2 of the 3 pillars. And it is, one is distribution, which is your sales. Second one is supply chain, which is your supplier. And then the third is the finance, right? So you gotta know how to make the product, where to sell the product, and then where you're gonna get the money, or like how to manage money. Like those are the 3 pillars, right? If you know 2, if you want to be like really successful, you better know like all 3, like pretty fluid in all 3. But if you know 2, like you could get by, right? But what I realized after starting a sunglass company was I didn't really understand the product. Like, just because I like wearing sunglasses does not make me an expert in the business. Right. And then I had no idea where to sell the merchandise to. So meaning, like, I knew like where to sell the merchandise to. What I did not know was like a lot of these accounts have exclusive with Luxottica. Like, for instance, Target. I couldn't sell to Target because Target has exclusive with Luxottica. So that gets nixed out. And then like what I started learning is like Sunglass Hut is an account, but you cannot sell to Sunglass Hut because it's owned by Luxottica again. Right. Yeah. Pearl Vision is owned by Luxottica too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so
it's like a straight up monopoly.
It is very monopoly, where it is almost unheard of monopoly, where they own the brands and then they own the retail like all of the retail outlets too. Yeah. Like, it's completely integrated through and through. And so I had nowhere to sell, and I was making pretty shitty products because I wasn't like technically fluid in how to make sunglasses. And like when you have like those 2, it's probably not a very good business model. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, but like, the best thing it did was it completely annihilated my ego, which was, I am grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that failure because it really made me who I am today.
So I guess you walk us through a little bit about what you're up to now since that time, and kind of what you spend your. I'm assuming you started another company after that.
I did start another company. I did.
So yeah, share with us what you've got going on.
Yeah. So the 5-year non-compete ran out on July 30, 2019. So I started.
Did you have that day like marked on your calendar?
Oh
like,
my God.
this is the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
With
I was
several
like,
reminders.
Oh my God. I was counting down on the days, like literally counting down on the days. And so I started a new company on August 1 of 2019.
Wow.
A new beauty company. And so this is my current company. It is Bespoke Beauty Brands. And what we do is a different business model. It is in the beauty space, but instead of me having my own one brand, what I do is I partner with influencers and we launch a brand together, and we do an equity deal. So my company, Bespoke Beauty Brands, come in and we do the 360 service. Like we operate, also distribute supply chain, like all the way from supply chain to finance to distribution. We take care of everything, warehouse, logistic, everything. But we use our influencer as our brand ambassador and their logo on our products as well. And then they get really heavily involved with our business as well. And we do a equity split.
How's that going?
It's doing really well. So the first brand I launched is called Kimchi Chic Beauty, Korean American drag queen, RuPaul's Drag Race Season 8. She's amazing. And we launched that brand in October of 2019. It's now barely 2.5 years, but we've already launched in CVS. We rolled out to CVS's IRL stores, and we're doing really well. We're already talking about expansion next year. The second brand that we launched was with Jason Wu, who's a fashion designer, very famous for designing Michelle Obama's inauguration ball gown both times. We did an exclusive deal with Target on that one, so we launched in Target, doing really well. We're going to roll into Canadian market next year with Jason Wu. And the third brand is a skincare company. It's a men's skincare company called My Johnson. And the fourth one, which we just launched about 2 months ago, is with she's a TikToker, she's a YouTube, Instagrammer, Leanne V, and we're doing a lash line, and we're gonna get into like other categories as well. So we got a lot going on. August of 2019, 2020, 21, 22, August. So it's 2.5, like it's not
almost 3 years.
Like in less than 3 years, we've launched 4 brands.
Wow.
And I am very proud of that. It's like,
are you involved day to day?
As a business owner, am I involved day to day? 24/7, like all the time. You could never be completely detached. It's like you're tethered to it, like through like an umbilical cord or something. But do I go into office every day these days? I don't. I'm just not the same person anymore,
Yeah.
But I have the president of my company. So what I'm doing is I'm doing kind of like an accelerated version of my last company. So the first company I started at 26. Didn't have a lot of money, knew nothing, and it took me 15 years to sell that one company. And this is like an accelerated version of that. So hopefully, I could exit out of this business in 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to kind of wrap up, aside from I know it's like you love the starting the businesses and being full on like in business mode, but what are some other things now, like after all these experiences and where you are today, that maybe you enjoy doing or enjoy, it could be doing or collecting or whatever it might be like these days, outside of work and business?
I still invest. So there's some not as prolific as I used to invest when I first sold the company, but if I find like an interesting company, I would still invest. But like I'm like really into a lot of spirituality stuff. I'm really into meditation and doing lots of yoga and traveling a lot as well. And I just turned 49. And so I decided that I'm going to live one epic year
Yeah.
before I turn 40. This is my last 1 year in my 40s. And this year, my motto is say yes to everything and no to nothing. I mean, within my boundaries and my comfort zone.
Right.
But I'm gonna go climb Mount Kilimanjaro in September. Wow. I'm doing a rafting down Colorado at Grand Canyon. Like a lot of these like things that are outside of the normal comfort zone.
Right.
I'm like gobbling it up. And then like my knee injury too. I got this from running a Tough Mudder on Sunday.
You did
last
that?
Sunday, yeah.
Oh,
we
wow.
did.
I did the other one a few years ago, Spartan race. And
Spartan. I want to do Spartan too.
Okay, just don't do it when it's hailing, because it was hailing when I did it.
How did you pick the day that is hailing?
It wasn't supposed to hail, and it hailed, and it was a disaster. And it's just like the worst thing I've ever done in my life.
Oh my God. Hey, but then don't you think about it? Like, isn't it? It's
a good story to tell, but it was just, I was miserable that day.
Yeah. So I do want to do Spartan too, but I heard like at Tough Mudder, like, you could help each other. But I heard Spartan, like, you cannot help. Like, if you cannot complete an obstacle, you have to do like 30 burpees or something.
Yep. They take you to the side and be like, get down and
How many burpees did you do?
Well over 100. Well over 100. But that was because like the handlebars were like wet and like it was all mud and like you couldn't even like jump to get over the wall that you had to get over and all these things, and it's like, cut me some slack, it's like hailing.
This too is because I fell off a monkey bar because it was so slippery, like I couldn't hold on, so I fell off a monkey bar.
Oh, that's how it happened? Oh God.
Yeah, and I heard something crack. I'm like,
that is not good.
Well, I mean, hopefully it's a quick recovery. It's,
Yeah, I mean, like I'm recovering really well. It's been a week and I am already so much better. So hopefully this will go away soon.
I was going to tell the listeners, I mean, she said she's going to say yes to most things. So
yeah,
if you guys have a pitch, this is the year to do it. Okay.
Well, Toni, it's been such a great conversation, and I feel like we could just like sit here and talk all day about so many different things and go in so many different avenues. But, we can't thank you enough for hanging out with us and just sharing your story, but also your wisdom and everything you've learned throughout this incredible journey you've had. And, we can't wait to see how this year goes, but also how everything goes beyond this point. And we're excited to keep in touch and see how everything kind of comes together with a new business and all that comes with it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for having me. That was fun. I mean, I felt like an hour just went by like this.
Right? It flew by. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, wow, how did it become an hour? But thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming to my house, setting all this equipment on.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.